Oh, here's some of the goals of flipped teaching I started with for the year, and this is kind of a cautionary tale. Some things that worked and some things that didn't work, and how I'm planning to adjust it for next year. First of all, the goals of flipped teaching from the video I saw were pretty impressive. It's this idea of a gift of time. It's a more efficient use of the student-teacher's time, because if the student can learn something through the videos, come into class then ready to work on homework and get individual and group help. They can also take on the videos at their own pace without feeling rushed or bored. Class time is used to work on homework, so actually the word homework isn't appropriate anymore. It's like schoolwork and you're doing the lesson at home. So, some lofty ideals, and here's some of the tools I used to fulfill Domain 3, engaging students in learning through varied methods of instruction. And a lot of these are available now to us. We have direct instruction through the video. Can give individual extra help in classes, part of the flipped teaching. This is something I've been doing for a while now, the feedback on student solutions posted on Wikispace. WebAssign I added this year that can give instant feedback. And WebAssign tutorials, which can step students through problems one step at a time. And there's time for more group work on homework and review packs. But now let's see what actually happened in Pre-Calc Honors. First, a little bit about the course. Pre-Calc Honors is considered one of the hardest classes. I know it's not an AP class, but the kids have to review so much after having a year off in geometry. And there is a lot of pressure to make your junior year shine, and a lot of kids feel they have to get into PC Calc for certain college placements. WebAssign was not available for this course, so I only did the flipped teaching. Halfway through the year, after getting some positive reviews from the kids, some of the kids, it was just not working, so we shifted back to a more traditional approach, and I'll explain that in a second here. This is what I was doing in my classrooms before, and let's flip to the two-sided ones here now. Here's what I was doing in my classes before I started doing before I started doing flipped teaching in pre-calculus. I would start off by going over homework at the smartboard with the whole class, and student volunteers would work out solutions at the sideboards. Eventually it was kind of sad because I have to erase those or I wouldn't get time to go over them. So eventually I had the students submit those to me in writing. That's where this idea of post-it problems came up. And that's one idea I'm sticking to. Then I would check out the work on the sideboards from the volunteers. And that would usually take quite a bit of time, and that would tend to rush the lessons. So, what did I shift to then? Here's the flipped teaching I did this year in Pre-Calc Honors. It would actually start at home. Students watch the video at home. Then in class, we start with some harder questions for the whole class to work on, and then work on homework individually or in groups. So this seemed ideal that the students could use class time to really practice what they had learned from the video. Like I said, this worked well for some kids, but not so well for others. And so halfway through the year, I came up with a hybrid system where the videos were no longer required. So watching the video was optional. It's clear, and I'll show you the report later on when we look at the Flange YouTube channel. You can see that students continue to watch the videos in the second semester, but it was more optional, and the numbers reduced on that. So I would start the class with a lesson at the smartboard. And part of the prepping I'd do for the video was making these blank forms that I'd fill out during the lecture in class. And actually I'd do it before the video as well. So I was all set to go on this, so it wasn't a big shift for me. From a student suggestion, we actually taped some of these lectures and posted those for a while, but those were not really used as much by the students. The audio wasn't as good if you try and pick up the audio in class. And then they could work on homework individually or in groups. This worked much better in the second semester. I mean, some students complained that liked the flipped teaching. I don't like to switch in the middle of the year, but for a greater majority of the students, this worked better, and it had more options. The kids that like flipped teaching could still watch the videos, and that way, if they were confused, they could tune in on the lesson. If not, I would let them work on homework as long as they did it quietly and individually. So this is what I'm proposing for pre-calc next year. Now, pre-calc, we would start with lessons just like I do here at the smartboard, and students can bring in a blank form of the notes to fill in during lecture. Then they work on the homework individually or in groups. Now here's where they have some choices. The PC text next year, the e-text, actually has videos already available to help on specific homework problems done by math teachers. So the students have an option of doing their homework via WebAssign or writing it out or doing a mix of each. The advantage of the WebAssign is they get faster feedback. Some kids, though, like writing out the problem more, and also then I would grade those toward the end, as you can see later on in my complete proposal for grading next year. Now, here's the idea of posting problems. Student volunteers submit complete solutions to difficult problems for scanning and posting on the Wikispace. This was very popular in the pre-calc honors class. We didn't do so much in calculus because they were so busy with their WebAssigns. The teacher reviews for correctness and presentation. Steve and I had both got a lot of input from students saying, some saying, put the WebAssign on there, some say, don't put any WebAssign in math. So I'm happy to offer this option and can grade in either way then. Now let's look at calculus, which is another course I've taught for a long time. We're under different names, PDM, Calc and Stats. And currently it's called technically a CPC, Calculus with Pre-Calculus is the title of the book, because it's a function-driven course. You study a group of functions like polynomials, you review them from pre-calc, and then you study the calculus of those. Then we keep going back to a different function, like in the second semester, we look at logarithms and exponents, and then do the calculus of those, and trig functions, and then do the calculus of those. Now, WebAssign was available for calculus, so I actually made the bold move of both doing flipped teaching and WebAssign. And some students that worked out great, and other students it just wasn't good enough. So here's some tweakings we did. The early reviews were good. The kids liked the flipped teaching. But if there's not a grade associated with the viewing of the videos, they slowly faded away. And kids were anxious to get to the graded thing, which was the WebAssign. Well, here's what I used to do before flipped teaching. Similar to what I did in my other classes, go over the homework at the smartboard, and students could put out solutions on the sideboards, check over those side solutions, and then with the time that's left, do the lecture for the next lesson. This year then, with the flipped teaching, I expected them to watch the video at home, and then we'd have a whole class discussion of some more difficult problems, and then they would start working on the WebAssign. Now here's where things went a little awry here with number 2. Because I got student input early on before the first quarter comments that they'd like to see more in the videos, and they'd also like to have more time in class to discuss things, and they'd also like to have more time to work on the WebAssign. Well, I could see increasing length of videos add more examples, and I did that. And actually, YouTube allowed me to make videos longer than 15 minutes because it just said as a teacher and I needed a little more time. So they let me do that. Some of the kids felt the videos were too long though then, but then that's what they asked for. So that kind of confused me because they could stop watching if they didn't want to see more examples. They could just look at the main lesson part. And also this whole class discussion fell by the wayside because I do those discussions, but I only have 1 or 2 students involved because the rest were anxious to start the WebAssign. And then because there was no grade associated with watching the video, this became dropped by some of the students and they would just go right to step 3 and work on the WebAssign. Because, you know, I was helping them in class work on the WebAssigns, get over some of the glitches, but then that's what it was in the beginning of the year, and later on then it was more along the lines of how to do problems and so forth. But this is what I'm proposing for next year, that we actually all start together with a lesson. The video is optional. They're still there from last year. They can watch those to help them get into the lesson faster. But the whole idea is that we'd all work as a group for a while as one class with a lecture in lecture mode. And when kids feel confident to start the WebAssign or the written homework, they can do that. And here's step 2. Start the homework in class or the WebAssign, alone or in groups. And student volunteers submit complete solutions to difficult problems for scanning and posting on the Wikispace. This is what I mean by posting problems on the Wikispace. This is a nice way for me to give feedback and get an idea of how they're working out the solutions completely. And also, it's a nice resource for the other kids to help them on their homework. They also will, for next year, have through the pre-calc text, e-text, is a source for videos on several of the homework problems. And here's my more specific flange system proposal for next year. 70% of the grade is based on the test. That includes a review pack, which can basically be done as a group. and that's a nice way for them to do collaborative work. I tried some group tests this year with varying degrees of success, so I'm going to just stick to the group review packs. That's 70% of the grade. The other 30% is based on the learning process. 30%, 3 times 10% for each of the following sections. The notes, 10% of the grade is based on their notes. Now, how I grade the notes is basically looking at what they've made for notes while they're taking the test. They show me their notes for the chapter. Now, these notes could have been gotten from videos. They could have been gotten from class, or you can get them from PDF files in the Wikispace. Now, in lieu of having their notes, they can do some posted problems. If they don't grade it on their notes, they can do 2 or 3 problems throughout the chapter with complete printout solutions for posting on the internet. Now, the second part, another 10%, is the homework, which can be done either through WebAssign or actually written out in the standard approach. Now, they can do a combination as well. If they find that they like doing a WebAssign, but in a certain section they just get confused by it and they want to write out something, I can easily take that written homework, and at the end of the chapter, when they're taking their test, I will look over the written homework and replace those WebAssign grades that they actually did written homework for. And 3, this is the part that is required, that they go to WebAssign and do some quizzes. Once or twice a chapter. And it's like WebAssign homework, but taken over a greater variety of topics. And the students actually were looking for more WebAssign quizzes. And you'll see that in some of the surveys I did here in a second. Now I'm going to take you on a little tour of first the Wikispace and all these aspects of the Wikispace with the syllabi and so forth, and then the Flange 360 channel, and also the reflections page. So here's the tour of the Wikispace. It's a nice, easy space. Sorry about that. Flange.wikispaces.com. Here's my home page. If I go to something like Pre-Calc Honors, I keep current announcements in here, where every chapter, first I kept pages for each chapter, but then kids had a hard time navigating, so I just kind of do it in reverse chronological order. As the most recent stuff is on the top. So like for our most recent unit on 17 and 18 limits and the derivative, here would be the actual packets we had, especially because we don't like what the text is doing. And here's basically the blank form I'm talking about, where the notes, let's call one up. This actually has the notes with lots of blanks in them for them to work. So that's what I mean by the blank form. Now here is the notes filled in after I've done the video. And then here on 17.1 and 2 homework, oh, this is what we actually did in group 1. This is actually the completed notes from 17.2. And here's 17.3, the ones we filled in class. And I actually keep a separate set of notes for each. I found from last year that students don't like if I keep building on the notes from another class, that I just add more examples. They want to do their fresh examples, and if they want to see the examples from the other class, they can go this way. Or if I approach the examples in a different way. Also, I have a separate PDF file for the homework solutions. Let's look at one of these. And this is where the student solutions are posted. There's the homework for 17.3. And usually I just have them give their first names. We don't put any last names on the internet. And sometimes you'll see that I put some of my notes on these. These were pretty straightforward. We didn't get to every problem. Yeah, they did a good job on these. Sometimes I find I have to write over some of it to give a little more illustration of what's going on with the concepts. Okay. Now you might say, well, where are all the other problems? That's one of the other aspects I have that's listed. If a student wants to know what solutions are available, they can go to this. This is the syllabus here, and you're all familiar with the syllabus. Basically, it lists what the homework problems are for the for Chapter 17 and 18, the schedule and when it's due and so forth. And now, this is the other thing I wanted to see is this homework sign up for 17 and 18. This is a work in progress as we're still doing some reviewing for the exam off of this. And this is a spreadsheet. I put question marks down by the questions I'd like to have them do and present. And these are students sign up to do them. And when I fill them with yellow means they've been checked over and posted on the internet. So there's still some over here that we're going to work on as we review for the exam. And this means these people haven't turned them in yet, but they're working on it. Okay. Now, what else in this whole setup? This is also where I keep, this is one of their favorite things, top secret Air Force generals only. This is where I post old tests and solutions to old tests, and also the current tests. Like I finally had everybody finish the test today, so I'm posting the test itself and the solution key for the test. So I find that very handy for looking over their mistakes. Now let's get back to pre-calc honors. That's about it. But now there's other things I want to check out on here. We're at the bottom is reflections. And here, this is basically, this video, just the notes for it are in here. Here's the flange system proposal that are also in the notes. But it's in more of it's a nicer form in this PDF. Sometimes when you try and transfer these to the smartboard stuff, it gets squashed. A lot of it has to do with the smartboard's nice because it doesn't try and present so much across the lines here. And you can look at one page and another page. Whereas when I take something like this that's formatted this way, it's almost like to get it to fit, I have to shrink it in. It just doesn't look good. So here's the flange system proposal I was talking about. There's the testing 70% and there's the learning, which comes in three chunks. Basically, notes, homework, quizzes. And they have a couple options on homework, whether it's WebAssign or written, and they have a couple options on how they're going to take their notes, either in note form or by doing these posted problems. Okay, now I'd also like you to see, I got some feedback forms here. And also here's where I came up with my proposal. My first draft was kind of complicated, but the kids knew what I was talking about with each one. And here's what they opted for a lot. When I said I was thinking about this for next year, I said, well, which ones would you opt for? And I gave them options and so forth. A lot of them said they'd like to be graded on their notes. Look at all those. And how they want to be graded on, how they want to get their notes. A good half said from lecture. And like you can see the 13 here wanted to watch a video. And the other ones just wanted to watch the PDF. Go through the PDF of the video. Then down here, you can see that with posted problems, it was more popular amongst the PCH students because they had actually done that. Didn't really have time for it so much in the calc class because they were doing more WebAssign. But even amongst the calc kids, if given a choice between doing written drill as opposed to WebAssign drill, they opted more for the WebAssign drill. So I think there's kids that feel kind of passionately about that one way or the other. They can't stand WebAssign or they like it. So I want to be able to offer that as a choice. Same thing with WebAssign tutorials, which are still available in calc. They're not so much in the pre-calc class. Instead of doing tutorial type problems, they actually have tutorial videos available in the pre-calc book. And they like the quarter review packs. And I canned this override idiot. That was not going to work out well. Too controversial. So now let's also look here at the feedback forms. And here's the pre-calc honors feedback forms. As you can see, a lot of kids were being honest. They didn't do all the homework because there was no WebAssign associated with pre-calc honors. And pretty positive. Very positive on the second page. I like to write down all the comments they make and then use tally marks if they're repeated. one real positive comment was basically the options I was giving for learning. That was came up with 5 kids brought that up, and the willingness to help. What the pre-calc honors kids didn't like is some kids actually wanted WebAssign, a couple of them. Here, they wanted the homework checked more. They wanted credit for doing their homework more so than just the extra credit points I give them for the posted problems. Now with calculus, as you can see, this number really jumped up because there was WebAssign. There was a grade associated with it. And for similar tests to what I gave last year, I had better performances on the tests. So even though there was a lot of complaining about the system this year, it was actually producing better results on the test. The same, if not better, depending on which test you're looking at. Because I felt the students were doing it more. Whereas in the past, where I'd give a lecture and I'd assign homework and we'd go over homework, not every kid was really motivated to actually do the homework unless it was being checked religiously. And that is one of the advantages of WebAssign. Now the disadvantage, though, is I also noticed that it's typical in the honors classes usually have more people looking for homework. Here, less homework going outside of class, looking for help outside class because I gave so much help inside of class. And it is calculus, so they found it somewhat challenging. By the usefulness of the materials, they said rarely because they're really not using the e-text at all. And the variety of activities was down because basically it was all WebAssign. I did my videos and then the website and helped them with the website. Now, here on the second page, encouraging questions and all that, they're very positive. A little less positive here on some of these things. And then, whether the homework was worthwhile or not, it was kind of balanced. With a lot of people saying sometimes. Now, here's some of the comments from calculus. The willing to help was way up from other years. Pretty much everybody was saying willing to help and knows this stuff, knows how to teach. The practice tests, a lot of positive stuff in there. Some people actually said they liked the flip teaching. Whereas there are also negatives. They wanted more teaching in class. Get rid of flip teaching. The web signs are too long. And you can read some of these other things. So, there are pluses and minuses. And like I said, it's a cautionary tale. Here it is. Here's the pre-calc. We started the year. A video that I introduced, the whole idea of flip teaching, has 205 views. Kids kept watching and trying to figure out where I am, and they still haven't figured out where I was at the school when I did that video. And in pre-calc, I had 30 students in pre-calc, and they pretty much more than 30 at some points because people are going back to watch it again. Now in the second semester, here's where we tried, some students wanted to do a special project, and they had a lot of views because they were big on seeing each other do problems. They actually tried this in another language. There's Tiwa doing it in French. I think that's Sam and John G doing it in Chinese. Yeah. We also tried later on taping some of the videos. I called those live. Here's the second semester where we split the class then. Mr. Paducci took over, so they didn't really need to watch the videos then. So, and then also I stopped requiring them. And then sometimes, more than the 15 students I had teaching, we're looking at it like in Chapter 11. They wanted to watch the videos. Chapter 12, not so much. And actually, making the videos helped me prepare some very nice materials for presentation on some complicated issues with three-dimensional graphing. And same thing like when you look at our most recent chapter. Here's some of the, where it says live. That's where I actually taped the lesson as we were doing it. They tend to be longer than the other pre-done lessons, like this is 13 minutes and it jumps up to 36 and 29. That's because there's student questions. So that's one thing you might want to consider in flip teaching is, do you want to maybe tape a class you're doing live where you can incorporate student questions in? I think I need a better microphone for those things. than the one I'm using right now is something directed right at my mouth. You have to get something that can pick up all the questions in the classroom.